I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, I'm delighted to welcome to the show a fabulous author. His name is Angus Shoor Caan, and he's written a powerful book, a book that might be reminiscent of your past in one way or another, or at least you remember the era. The name of the book, Violet Hiccup, 51 Shades of Pink. This novel is a vibrant and rollicking journey through the late 1970s and the early 80s, capturing the essence of a drug-taking, music-loving, sex-obsessed era. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank our team at Prime 7 Media for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his wonderful book. The links are below this interview. Angus, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
Good evening, Logan. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Where did you ever come up with the idea for Violet Hiccup, 51 Shades of Pink?
When I moved to the northwest of England for work, I got friendly with a fella and we started swapping stories. I had been around the world. He had been on the hippie trail, places like that. So we swapped stories. And after a while, I looked at me and he says, when you write your first book, not when you write a book, when you write your first book, give me a mention, which I've done in all 13 of my novels. Now I've done that. So I've given a mention. Different guys, he's had different occupations during those books, but he gets a mention in every book.
Wonderful. Wonderful. The character of Pink Lynt is very, very unique, of course. How did you go about crafting this character?
It's just an observational thing. I was looking for a name. I was looking for a name for the novel in the first place, but I had the name for the character, and I just developed it from there. And so he became Pink, and that's how it came about. But looking for the
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Looking for the name of the book itself. I was about a third of the way through the book and I didn't have a title for it. And I got a mail shot, one of those that tells you a scratch panel and it tells you you got a code word, or 2 words it was, and you phone up and you win £1 million or $1 million or whatever it was. Scam. But the code was Violet Hiccup, and it just clicked it then. But that's the name of my book, because I was just about to introduce character into Violet into the book,
right?
And that came just circumstance.
Yeah. Well, it's a great
Happy
title.
Circumstance. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a great title. Really catches your attention, which is wonderful as well. Why don't you tell the folks at home the overview? What's the story about?
It's basically a romp through the period you mentioned, late 70s, early 80s. And it's a romp. The character is down on his luck. His luck changes all of a sudden. And he progresses from there and he just romps through sexually, drugs, music. I had the soundtrack 50 years ago nearly for it, thinking it's going to be a film, a movie. But obviously that's not happened yet. And it might never happen. But that's how it came about. Yeah.
But it would be a great movie. I mean, with the music, the fashions, the era. It was kind of such a unique time with the way people partied, the way people dressed, the way people wore their hair, the sexual liberation that was going on. It was a very exciting time.
That's right. The main character, he wears a ponytail, or a plait, and he's almost sitting on it, which I had myself, so it's partly me, and it's mostly like kid on sort of thing,
Yeah. If you were going to pick out a song to be the soundtrack of this book, what would it be?
One song?
Yeah.
Oh, probably a Jackson Browne song, like Fountain of Sorrow, something like that.
Yeah.
I think that would suit it. But yeah. I mentioned so many songs in it.
Yeah.
In the book. So any of them, really.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I've got a particular favourite band from that time called The Movies. an English band, and they were very good.
Mm,
And I've got all five of their albums, and I thought, well, that could be part of the soundtrack. A lot of it, like
yeah, absolutely.
typical of the period, typical of the time the book takes place. Yeah.
Yeah. Eight Ball is an interesting character, the sidekick of the story. Tell us a little bit about Eight Ball.
Well, Eight Ball was a real cat at one time. He was my cat, and when I lost it, when I moved out, I had to move out in my house. I went to live with a friend of mine, and he had Eight Ball's brother. So they sort of cohabited together. But he was a real cat, Eight Ball.
Hmm.
Just wrote him into the story. I wove him into the story, like, sidekick.
Is this the first time you wrote a book?
I wrote one before it.
Mm-hmm.
It was always going to be my first book. But when I moved back up here, my Australian girlfriend, I took her all over the place around this way, like, the West Coast. Told her what I got up to as a kid, and she said, no, you should write about that. So I did that, and I found it quite easy. It just came to me. I wrote it in no time at all. And I thought, well, I'm going to sit down and write the intended first book, which was Violet Hiccup.
Hmm.
That was my second book.
Are you working on a new book right now, or?
I've tentatively put my toe in the water. I write poetry as well, see. And over the COVID period, my publisher, the guy that used to publish for me, he gave up, like, he finished publishing. So I thought, I'll have to learn to publish myself. And these poems just kept collecting and collecting and collecting. And I've almost caught up with myself now on that. So once I've caught up with that, I'll concentrate on another book, I think, yeah.
Yeah. What was it like writing Violet Hiccup? Did it take you a long time? Was it very inspired? Did you write it all down during the course of like a long weekend, or was it an hour a day? Tell us a little bit what it was like writing the book.
It's the same with my first book. I just started writing and I didn't stop writing. It just came to me. I didn't plan anything. I just left a chapter and what does he do next? What happens next? I didn't plan ahead. I didn't write anything down. I didn't do any research. I had the music in my head. I had more or less a story in my head for, like I say, 40 odd years.
Yeah.
I had that story in my head. I was determined to write a book at some point, never found the time. And when I came up here, I found the time. So
yeah, having the music in your head really helps bring it together, because the music kind of transports you back to that time, don't you think? I hear Jackson Brown. I was in high school. Running on Empty was a big song, that kind of stuff, It really does magic, the music, right?
it does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. When you finished writing this book, who was the first person you gave it to and said, hey, take a look at this?
Well, actually, I told you about my Australian girlfriend. She went back to Australia and she would phone me. She found some way of phoning me without it costing her anything. So as I was writing a chapter, I was reading it down the line to her. So she was the first to actually get rid of it, get hold of it, sort of thing. Yeah.
And what was her reaction when she read the book?
Well, she loved it. She loved it. Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, Angus Shoor Caan has written a terrific book. It is called Violet Hiccup, 51 Shades of Pink. The book is a trip, as we used to say back in the day, a journey through the late 1970s and the early 1980s. And it captures the essence of this truly wild and unique American and European experience in the late 70s and early 80s. There were a lot of drugs, there was a lot of music, there was a lot of sex, and it makes for quite an amazing story. You'll feel like you've been transported back in time, and that's a good thing. The story follows a character by the name of Pink Lynt, who's been down on his luck as his life takes a series of twists and turns. The arrival of Violet Hiccup marks a turning point in his life. Eight Ball as well playing a pivotal role. This book is a nostalgic and vivid portrayal of a distinct and dynamic period in time. If you lived through it, you'd like to live through it again, read the book. If it's ancient history to you, read about it. It's wonderful. Great book. Angus, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
No worries. I've enjoyed myself. Thank you. Good to
I
meet you.
enjoyed speaking with you as well. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, wishing you a great day and a good evening.